Hi, good evening to Doctor and my fellow friends. Today we as Group 10 will be presenting about how to overcome problems that is related with cultural background, that is racism, discrimination, prejudice, and stereotype. So the group members are me, Jasminda Kosakon, with matrix number 203987.
Me, Tan Kelly, with matrix number of 203962.
Hi, my name is Ketana Ravindran and my matrix number is 201887.
So today we will begin our presentation by introducing the presentation outline first, where the first will be definition about racism, discrimination, prejudice, and stereotype. Second, we'll be talking about signs of racism, discrimination, prejudice, and stereotype. Third, we'll be talking about cases occur in world related to these issues. Fourth, we'll be talking about effects of racism, discrimination, prejudice, and stereotype. Fifth is the ways to overcome racism, prejudice, discrimination, and stereotype. Sixth is about journal review. And number 7 is the conclusion of our presentation. Now, we will begin with definition of racism, discrimination, prejudice, and stereotype. So, the definition of racism is, it is also known as racialism, and is the belief that the humans may be divided into separate and exclusive biological entities called races. And it is a causal link between inherited physical traits and traits of personality, intellect, morality, and other cultural and behavioral features. The definition of discrimination is the unfair or prejudicial treatment of people and groups based on their characteristics, such as race, gender, age, or sexual orientation. The definition of prejudice is an affective feeling towards a person based on their perceived group membership. It's like liking or dislike for one rather than another, especially without good reasons. And the definition of stereotype is to believe unfairly that all people or things with a particular characteristics are the same. Now we will be proceeding with our second part of presentation, which is sign of racism, discrimination, prejudice, and stereotype. Therefore, how to know that whether racism, discrimination, prejudice, or stereotype is occurring around us? Okay, so firstly is racism. How to know? First sign is advocacy of segregation, in where it represents a belief that different races should live apart and be educated separately and not intermarry. So it can occur explicitly or implicitly. Second is extreme pride in one's own country or race, in where it's like patriotism where can be laudable, but when taken to extremes, this sentiment becomes the basic of fascist regimes. And third is association, in where it's a common for races to associate with other races. So the sign to know whether discrimination is occurring around us is, there are three types of discrimination, where first is religious discrimination. Religious discrimination is like involve treating a person unfavorably because of her religious belief. Second is the disability discrimination, in where treating individuals differently because of their disability. And third is sexual orientation, in where it's a belief or argument that one's sexual orientation or sexual behavior is inherently superior to some of all others. Next. So how to know what are the signs of prejudice occurring around us? So first is nationalism, second is racism, third is sexism, and fourth is weight-based. So what is meant by weight-based? It's like prejudice, which is also known as a discrimination as well, against an overweight and obese individual based on their body weight and appearance. And how to know whether it's a sign stereotype is occurring around us is, first is race, second is nationality, and third is language. So what is meant by language is like stereotype language is actually the one that assume a stereotype about a group of people.
So there are a few cases of racism and discrimination. So the first case is actually happened in a school when a new principal is elected, and the principal is racist towards the Indian students, and the principal will always make negative comments towards the Indian student. Like for example, the principal will say Indian students are troublemakers and they are dirty. They say they are dirty because of their skin color. Like for example, there's a case happened in school. When there is a spot check, the principal purposely go to check the Indian student's nail, and even though the student's nail is clean and tidy, but then the principal will still ask the students to go out to stand outside because of their skin color, and that because their nail look dark and black, then the principal assume the student is dirty, which is unfair. And there's another example happened in school, which during the Chinese subject period, most Malay and Indian students, they will be in the library, and during that period, all the students make noises in the library, and the librarian assume only the Indian students making noises, which because of their skin color, which is not fair for them. And for the new principal, the new principal also like to compare the academic results of the Indian students with other races, but the principal only compare the bad one, but not the good one. The second case is happened in a national school in Batu Pahat, where the racism happened because of the registration of core curriculum according to race. Like for example, for sports, only Malay males are allowed to join the football club, and for only Chinese students allowed to join the basketball club. Only Malay females allowed to join the netball club. Actually, these cases is very common in every school, because like for example, for Chinese society, only Chinese students allowed to join the Chinese society, where the Indian students allowed to join the Indian society only. But then nobody realized that this is actually leading to the racism in students.
Okay, so now I would be explaining on the cases that happen for the stereotypes and prejudice. So one of the cases that happened for stereotype is it happened in a general workspace, where it was remarked by Dr. Tun Mahathir that he quoted that the Chinese are wealthier a lot and they control all the towns in the country. But actually it's just a preconceived opinion which is not based on the real experience. And also he said that like many non-Malays who argue that Malays exercise total monopolization over politic power, which is also not really true. And there is also stereotype saying that about Malay laziness, that they do not want to, they do not have any wish or the urge to go and find work. Those are opinions that were given, which is non-true. So this is a case where it happens in prejudice system, where it happens in school. Many students were being called a sweetie or mate in primary school, which perpetuates gender stereotypes, which is also a it's a preconceived opinion against people. Also, the quote saying like we need a strong man to open that towards girls, and boys saying that teachers saying that making sure you ask mommy to sign the form. These are like examples where this kind of prejudice system happen. So as an improvement in the school, the ministry examined the curriculum and decided to add more female scientists and composers, while a lesson about dance looked at male dancers, which means female, they are giving more dominance to female in those kind of harsh workspace, and also allowing male teachers to be able to teach dance as a passion. So next, I would be explaining about the effects of racism, discrimination, prejudice, and stereotypes. So when it comes to all four of the system, they mainly give you a lot of bullying, lack of self-esteem. Because of that, you get unequal treatments and mostly discrimination. Also, this mainly affects your mental health. They give you stress, depression, anxiety, and also they give you a really diminished confidence and fear of others.
Okay, so next is the ways to overcome the racism and discrimination. So for students, how they can overcome the racism and discrimination, they can actually stand up for themselves. They can say no to others. They can say no to those who bully them. And if they are bullied by others, they can also report the cases to the teachers, principal, or even police officers. They should also cultivate cross-group friendship, like having friends with different races. And lastly, is the most important one, which is be open-minded. Next is for teachers. For us as a teacher, we can teach the students about racism, and the school can celebrate the multicultural history at school and also discuss about race. And lastly, the teachers can be an ally to the students, which we call victims.
All right, so now I would like to explain on the ways to overcome stereotypes and prejudice. So as a student, we need to have a lot of self-affirmation to find a different focus when we were being disturbed such way, to understand one's feelings before we react and give criticism, to always be open-minded and to be real of what is happening. As a teacher, we need to educate students on growing mindset, to always help students acknowledge their own abilities and talents, and also to be a really great role model to them in order for their bright futures.
Okay, next is the journal. The journal we found is about racism and discrimination, and the purpose of the journal is to study the racism and discrimination in children and youth. And the journal is about research, and the research is based on questionnaire, and the questionnaire is distributed to 277 children, and their targets of the children is between 8 to 16 years old. And based on the research, 88% of the children have experienced at least once of racism and discrimination in their life. Like, for example, they have been treated badly by teachers, bus drivers, and even security guard. And the most common one is their classmates, friends, and so on. In conclusion, racism, stereotypes, and prejudice behaviors does affect in social psychology, and there are many factors that lead to these thinkings because of the lack of understanding of knowledge in culture. Thus, as a responsible citizens, we should able to learn and understand one another to reduce the racism, stereotypes, and prejudice cases. That's all from us. Thank you.